Hello, friends. Welcome to episode... Uh-oh. I don't know what episode this is. Damn. 1 second. I know now. Ready? Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 337 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today's show is sponsored by the Contour Next One blood glucose meter and Touched by Type 1. Please take a moment to go to the links right here in your podcast player's notes, or I've made them available at juiceboxpodcast.com for this episode. Anyway, go to those links, check out the sponsors. Touched by Type 1 is a wonderful organization supporting people with type 1 diabetes. And the Contour Next One blood glucose meter is absolutely, without a doubt, no BS, the best, easiest to carry, easiest to use, most accurate blood glucose meter Arden has ever had. And if you go to contournextone.com, there's a little thing at the top. I think it's yellow. You click on it to see if you're eligible for an absolutely free meter right now. contournextone.com, touchedbytype1.org. If I tell you that today's episode is about one woman's journey through type 1 diabetes, it's too simple of a statement. And if I tell you more, well, then I'm going to have to explain the whole episode to you. So I'm stuck. What do I say to get you to listen to this? I don't know. It's good. I'll tell you that much. Kayla has come a long way in a relatively short amount of time. Well, that's not true. It's been a long time, but the journey we're talking... You know what? I got corona brain and corona hair. You should see it. It's like a foot tall. But I don't want to discount this episode because it really is a wonderful story. So I'm going to leave it to you. And of course, I'll remind you that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Please always consult a physician before making changes to your medical plan or becoming bold with insulin. And now, the end of the tune.
Hello, I'm Kayla McBride.
Wow, you jumped right in with your whole name there. Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
So Kayla has not gone into some long drawn out, like, I'm Kayla McBride and this is my story, because Kayla and I have a history, an email history that goes back into 2017. And it is, Kayla, is it July still? It is, right?
Yes.
It is July 2019 right now. So many of you write me. I don't know if you understand how it goes or not, but you write me. I see your emails piling up. And then one day I just put aside hours and I sit down and I answer everyone's emails. It's the best way I've come up with so far, which it's not good. It's just the best I can do. And a lot of us have correspondence that go back and forth. I am normally the, I'm not usually the long part of the conversation. I'm usually like, that's great. Good job. This is cool. Keep writing, like that kind of person, because it's just a lot of writing for me. But we thought for this episode, we'd do something a little different. So I'm actually going to read Kayla's first note, and then we're going to start talking, and then we're going to kind of go through the emails together and see where Kayla has ended up, because it's such a long kind of process. Okay, Kayla, ready?
Yes, ready.
Right. So you wrote in early December 2017, and your subject line for your email was, I finally have hope with T1D. And you said, first of all, I want to thank you for all that you do for the diabetes community, which was very nice. You didn't have to do that. This month is my 10th anniversary with type 1. That was amazing, right? Right? I mean, 10 years at anything, pretty impressive. But then you told me that most of the journey has not been a smooth one. And this is when I start settling into my chair. I go, okay, here we go. Kayla's going to have a sad story. You'll like pull yourself together and write her back, right? I was diagnosed at 17, junior year of high school. Family decided to take a vacation. And then you had felt ill for a while. You'd recently had a small surgery, so you figured it was that. And then it wasn't. And, you started blaming jet lag and anything you could, but you're on this trip with your family. You start getting worse, frequent urination. You say intense muscle cramps, shortness of breath, all this bad stuff. You end up in DK in the hospital for 6 days.
Yep. In La Jolla, California.
I mean, there's worse places, right?
I know. We were actually pulling away from that hospital, and there was a huge banner out front that said #1 in diabetes care. And I was like, well, okay.
At least I made it to the number. Can you imagine if you pulled away and it said #3 in diabetes care? You'd be like, all right, I guess still not bad. Since then, I have struggled with finding a good endocrinologist that lasted longer than a couple of years. My first endo, I love this one, would offer advice like eat a sandwich every night before going to bed to keep your blood sugar from plummeting.
Yep.
That's a great one. How much? I'm trying to imagine how much weight I'd put on if I ate a sandwich every night before I went to bed. I'm thinking probably more than I would want. And then you say you didn't know anything about pumps, so you couldn't recommend them. You did some research about pumps while you were in college. Got an Omnipod. You said that helped keep better control throughout the craziness of college. And then you said, unfortunately, I was like, oh, there was like 2 sentences of upbeat. I was like, here, we're going to make it. Here comes the good part of Kayla's story. She beats the bad guy. And nope, unfortunately, a couple of years back, I had to switch back to MDI because I could no longer afford pumping. You were a college kid working at a nonprofit, and your you went back to MDI, and you said your A1Cs were sitting at 9 and that you were very frustrated by that.
Yes.
Now, here comes the good part. I started listening to the podcast a couple of months ago, and I immediately learned so much about how best to treat diabetes with preventative action, which is obviously what we're talking about here. Stay fluid, be ahead of the problem, that kind of thing. I learned the importance of the diabetes community. That's excellent. And that I'm not alone. Most importantly, I've gained so much more confidence in my treatment plan. A month ago, I decided to give the Dexcom CGM a try. It's been such a lifesaver. I went to my endocrinologist appointment today and found out that my A1C, after a month of this Dexcom thingy, 7.1. I can't wait to see what my A1C is going to be at my next appointment. After I have months of data, being able to direct my blood sugars the way I want, etc., blah, blah, blah. I could go on for days. Kayla. I write Kayla back in true form with tiny bullet points saying, wow, your diagnosis sucked. People who have ever written to me are like, yeah, this is how this guy gets back to you. Way to go. What you've done with your perspective, not to mention your A1C, is amazing. Congratulations. I hope we can keep in touch. And I would kind of like to know what your next A1C is. So let's kind of start there.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit more about the diagnosis and then meeting this first endocrinologist, that wasn't so great.
Well, as the letter kind of said, I'd had a tonsillectomy earlier in 2007. And so going into not feeling well and everything, I just thought I was still recovering from that. As you get older, it takes longer to heal from the tonsillectomy. So I was like, okay, maybe this is going to take a few months. But it was about 6 months of just not feeling great. And then we had this huge trip planned to San Diego where we were going to see SeaWorld and go to the zoo and, actually eat with Shamu at SeaWorld and all this stuff. And I just always wanted to go. And so we catch a flight, and I knew on the flight there that something wasn't right. And I told my mom even before then, I said, I'm not feeling too great. And she's like, well, as soon as we get home, we're going to get everything tested. So let's just get through this trip. So on the flight, I get up 5 or 6 times to go to the restroom. My feet were tingling the entire time. And I was like, what is going on?
Your feet were tingling?
Yeah.
Okay. That's just a new one for me. That's I figured if I did this long enough, somebody would say my feet were tingling, and you were the one. Go ahead.
And so we get to California, and the whole trip was it was great, but it was also miserable.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the zoo, and I had to ride the bus around the zoo. We couldn't walk because I was so out of breath the whole time. We went to the dinner with Shamu, and I couldn't eat anything because I was so nauseous. So I just ate fruit, because you're like, oh, that's a more natural thing to eat. But I ended up that didn't stay down very long. And I remember we went to one Mexican restaurant while we were there, and I had 7 glasses of Sprite because you're like, when I'm nauseous, you have Sprite. That's how I was raised. You have Sprite and crackers, and that's easy on the stomach. But now that I know it was type 1 diabetes that I was trying to fight, that was probably the worst I could do. So we even went to the Ghirardelli chocolate factory the day before I was diagnosed. We were like, let's just split a big something so we get a big treat. And so the day before we were supposed to drive cross country back to Tennessee from California, I basically fell out in the bathroom. And my stepdad pulled me out of the bathroom, and they, next thing I know, there's like 10 paramedics in the room. Of course, I'm unconscious slightly in all of this. I was in a coma for half a day after this, but they said that even when he would try and my stepdad would try and pull down my shirt, that I would fight him, even though I was pretty much out of it. But ended up in DKA, and I was in the ICU at La Jolla Hospital for 6 days. And yeah, it was a real exciting vacation.
Did they tell you what your blood sugar was when you were in DKA? Because your description of the very end is, I think, indicative of you were probably pretty much at the end of being alive there.
Yeah, they said my organs were shutting down, and my whole family said you were just cold and clammy. We didn't know what was going to happen. And they said I was a 12, which I know I've heard a lot higher, but my A1C was a 12 is all that I know. I don't know an actual
blood sugar.
Yeah.
That's really scary. And it probably, when you look at the story, you probably really needed to go to the hospital back at the tingly feet part. And you powered through. You must have really wanted to go on that vacation. Hey, you know what I have to ask you? Was Shamu a good cook, or do you not remember?
It was like a buffet style.
Oh, I thought you went to Shamu's house and they cooked.
Oh, no.
She cooked for you. That's not what happened. I see. I got you. All right, fine. Well, that's terrible. Hey, Kayla, congratulations on being alive. Because it sounds like you were right there, knocking on heaven's door, as they say. I'm happy that you did not drop dead. Congratulations. But that was really just the beginning for you, right? So now you're diagnosed and you're still a high school student. Not fun. You're back in Tennessee now. No longer in the #1 diabetes center in La Jolla.
Right.
And you meet, I guess, let me just ask a little bit. Was this during the summer?
No, it was during the school year. So it was actually December 2007 when I was diagnosed. I was in the hospital during New Year's.
I was going to say this was like a Christmas trip for you guys.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Now I feel bad because I know how hard it is to take a family on a vacation. It really, seriously. Did you notice, by the way, everyone's diagnosed on vacation? It's fascinating.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you're back in Tennessee and you're going to school. So 10 years ago, I'm assuming they just gave you was it pens or needles, or what did you get to start with?
Yeah, it was just syringes and the glass vials. And so, of course, in high school, everyone was like, "Oh, she's going to shoot up" before lunch. And my English teacher at the time had this little side room that was kind of his office. And he was like, "You can just step in there before lunch every day and do your thing." Mm-hmm. So it was really nice to have that.
Nice of them, yeah. And I'm assuming about the 13th time for the shoot up comments, you're like, "I got to move away from here one day."
No.
So did you not find high school too troubling with diabetes, or how did you find it?
Well, it was kind of towards my end of my high school journey. So I think in that letter I said junior year, but it's actually my senior year, December, my senior year. So, I had 6 months and then I was having to go to college. So,
Kayla, our whole relationship's based on a lie. That's in the second sentence of the first email. I'm sorry, we're going to have to call this short. Bye-bye. No. So, okay, that was actually your senior year. Okay, so you just went back, finished up your senior year, and then jumped into college. Doesn't sound now that sounds worse to me. I thought at least you had a year to get sort of accustomed to things, but you just finished up the last half of your senior year and were right away. How far away was college? Was it far from home?
Well, I stayed in town, and I'm so glad that I did choose that. Because I had already decided on Lipscomb university as my college, which is in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I already decided that in my junior year. So yeah, I stayed in town. I was close. So even though I'm sure it wrecked my whole family to be like, hope she stays alive, hope she knows what she's doing. At least I was close.
Bye, Kayla. Good luck.
I know.
Well, did you know what you were doing?
So I really credit the Omnipod a lot for keeping me alive in college. Because so many times I was just like, okay, I'm setting these alarms and I'm not going to worry about it until I hear one. But I didn't have them at good parameters. I didn't, like it's just all the time you're trying to check and
no, so
I don't know.
no, don't. So you're describing something that I think is probably now still and was more so years ago, just a common way of dealing with your diabetes. They've given me these, I don't know, mathematical equations that tells me how much insulin, and I get up in the morning, I test my blood sugar, I give myself insulin, I eat, I wait a certain number of hours, I do it again. It's usually another meal time by then. This keeps happening. My blood sugar is never where I want it to be, but that's okay. I'll try again. And that's pretty much it. But I think what you were saying a moment ago was that by putting on an Omnipod or having an insulin pump at all, at least you didn't have to draw a needle. Were you skipping when you were doing MDI? Were there times where you were just like, I'm not giving myself insulin? Like, did you skip it?
Oh yeah. And I would even do that with the Omnipod. I would skip meal doses and be like, well, I have a drip going in, so
that's
interesting. It won't be too bad.
Okay. So Kayla, first of all, your story is fairly common, and I really appreciate you sharing it with everybody. Even with a pump on, even when you hear me like, and I'm doing my ads and I'm like, just push the button. It's so easy. You were like, yeah, I just looked at that button. I was like, no, thanks. Now, what stops you when you're wearing a pump? And it is just honestly as easy as pushing a button and saying, I would like you to give me insulin for 35 carbs and button. When it's that simple, what stops you from doing it? The Contour Next One blood glucose meter. Let's talk about it. How about it's tiny, but still easy to hold? How about it's got a little light on it, but that light is plenty bright enough? In the middle of the night, when you can't find your blood drop, just push the light. Oh, look, there's the blood. I see it. Just like that. It's very simple. Other things about that light that you might not know is you sort of set your, not sort of, that would be silly. How would you sort of set your? Let's start over again. One of the other things about those lights that you don't know, but you could know if you went to contournext1.com and read about it, is that you can set them for ranges, right? So when you get a test, say you like beep, beep, right? And it's like 93 and 93 is in your range, the light will turn green. Oh, see what I'm saying? You do, don't you? So it's just sort of this visual cue. This is where I mean to be. This is above where I mean to be, below where I mean to be. It's a little something, but adds a lot of panache and value. Not that panache is not valuable. Another thing you're going to love about the Contour Next One is the app that goes along with it that you can use or not use. Totally up to you. Nobody's forcing you to use the app, but you can if you want. And it's available for Android and iPhone. It'll help you plot those data points and make sense of your blood sugars. Now, just from personal experience, I find the meter to be incredibly easy to handle. It's got a beautiful bright light for nighttime. And the test strips, beyond being accurate, super accurate in fact, they're just easy to use, meaning I can touch the blood drop, not get as much as I need, and go back in and get more without wasting a test strip. So that's amazing. For certain, I can tell you this, that of all of the blood glucose meters Arden has ever had, this is my personal favorite and hers. It's simple to use. It is handy, sleek, right? Like a ski boat almost. You know, when you look at, I'm not into boats, but I've seen people look at boats and they go, ooh, look at that boat. That's how I feel about the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. Anyway, we've gotten off track. I think we all realize that now. ContourNext1.com. Top of the page, get a free Contour Next One meter. Click on that to see if you're eligible. And if you're not, it's a blood glucose meter. If you have insurance, they're not really that expensive. So ask your doctor about it today. Get started with the meter that Arden and I really adore. And with that little bit of time you've now made for yourself in your life, right? By not fumbling with your old meter or being like angry at it because this thing's never right. Go to touchedbytype1.org. Take that new free time, that new lightness in your soul, and go share it with other people. Or at least let them share their lightheartedness with you. Touchedbytype1.org is the place to go to watch people be lifted up, supported, and watch them raise money to help find a cure for type 1 diabetes. Touchedbytype1.org. ContourNext1.com. Links in your show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's find the answer out to the question I just asked Kayla before the break and really roll into her story. This is an interesting episode. I'll tell you why at the end of this little... I like the way the music right here, like this. Right? And it just trickles out to the end. I guess if I didn't talk over, you'd be able to hear it better, right? Anyway, what I liked about this interview most is that I was doing a lot of reading in the very beginning, reading the email, which I didn't realize at the time made me feel uncomfortable. I really do like the podcast to be free-flowing. But Kayla and I get through the emails in a little bit, and the conversation kind of sinks in a little more. She's more comfortable. I'm back into my groove. And this episode's interesting. It takes on two kind of lives. Lives? Definitely lives, not lifes. Lives would be completely incorrect. This episode takes on kind of two different lives. Why did I say kind of? This episode takes on two different lives, and you're about to see the transition. Well, hopefully you'll see it. Anyway, I've now talked meaninglessly for a minute, and you've probably skipped through this, but back to the show. I love you guys. Thanks for listening. When it's that simple, what stops you from doing it?
At the time, I was still with that first endocrinologist, and I honestly did not feel knowledgeable about type 1D at all. I did not really know how to accurately dose, and I was really scared of the insulin, honestly.
Okay.
So I said, well, at least I know I have a little bit in me, and if it gets too high, I can just bump it down with a whole lot and be ready to catch it at the bottom.
Did your doctor ever say something to you, and you've never said this in your emails, but I'm just wondering, has anyone ever said to you back then, better high than low?
I think they were always really scared of the lows, but they would just say, you just need to do better. Like, that's what I kept hearing was, you need to take care of yourself better. And I was like, I don't know what that means.
No, of course. And by the way, too, when you're just introduced into diabetes, when you're in your senior year of high school, not your junior year of high school, but in your senior year of high school, right? When this is your introduction, and then, you're graduating, and then boom, off to college, you need to do better from a person who is not telling you what that means or how to get to that spot. In a world where, let's be honest, if you need an Advil for something and it says every 6 hours, how frequently do you really take your Advil? Every 6 hours, right? You take it and you feel a little better and then you forget again. It's actually one of the biggest problems that prescribing physicians have with medications is that it's just human nature. You start to feel better or you don't feel badly, whichever it is. And that just doesn't make you think to take the medication again. A huge problem in the world of people with antidepressants, ironically, is they begin out, sometimes depressed. They take their antidepressant, they stop feeling depressed. And the minute they stop feeling depressed, they go, I don't need that medicine anymore. I'm not depressed. Never connecting the line between I'm not depressed anymore, maybe because I took the medication. Yeah. And it's very common. So I don't want you, and you don't need me telling you, but you shouldn't feel bad about this. This is no different than if I put a 6-year-old in the car and told him to drive across the country, and then they ran into a tree at the end of my driveway and me yelling up, going, what are you doing? You got to do better. Think of how ridiculous that is, So you're going along in this kind of loop of just, I test when I can. I test when I think about it. I don't want to be low. I'm scared of being low. What happened? Did you have a bad low that threw you off, or was it just the fear someone put into you?
I honestly didn't have too many bad lows. And even in, I've been able to catch them all. There was one incident. It was the day after a Thanksgiving one year. I want to say it was 2013 or something. that I fell out in the hallway with a low blood sugar, and they had to do like the gel, and I ended up going to the hospital, but I didn't remember any of that. But
That's the good thing about being low. You don't really remember any of it. And by the way, it
yeah.
took me 2 usages of the phrase fell out to realize that you were saying passed out. But
Oh, okay.
that's a local colloquialism, I imagine.
I guess.
Yeah. That's so if I told you I passed out, would you know that I meant fell out?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. I see. You people got your own little like country down there or something going on. I hear what's happening. All right. So even that's more interesting, right? Not a lot of bad lows, still afraid. And that's just the message, right? That people get so often, like, be afraid, be afraid. The insulin's going to kill you. I'm like, yeah, the insulin, not having it's going to kill me too. Like, what is it's just a strange, I feel like I repeat myself sometimes, but such a strange idea to decide, well, I'd rather die tomorrow than today. You're still dead. Like, what's the difference? And so, like, why not take a shot at living healthy here? Like, why is that not the message coming from the doctor? Like, look, this insulin can be dangerous if you use it incorrectly. Let's learn together how. But it sounds like your doctor really didn't even know how to tell you to use it correctly. And given them credit where it's due, 10 years ago, no CGM, right? Like, it's not like that was, not like anybody had ever seen anybody's blood sugars. Everybody was really just working on this like test, wait, test again theory. The problem is that standing here today in 2019, that's still the advice a lot of people get. That sucks. So you find the podcast. What's the first thing that strikes you that makes you think, oh, wow, maybe there's a different way?
Well, when I found it, I was on MDI. I was off the Omnipod just because I couldn't afford it anymore. And I heard you talk a lot about the Dexcom, which I actually tried for a week in college. I tried the Dexcom out.
Okay.
But because I was so out of control, I was just overwhelmed. And it was one of those, that first endocrinologist was kind of, if he didn't understand it, he didn't really want me to do it. So he didn't understand the Omnipod. He didn't understand the Dexcom.
I want to stop you for 1 second. I hope people understand that when another human being tells you, you need to figure this out, what they're really saying to you is, I don't understand this either. I can't help you with it. So like, don't let that pressure feel like that. Like, understand that if you had a better teacher wouldn't tell you, hey, there's algebra, you go figure it out. They would actually explain it to you. So,
yeah.
Right. So you tried it once, saw your blood sugars, and thought to yourself, hey, this guy's right. I do need to take better care of myself, but I don't know how. So I'm going to stop seeing my blood sugar now, and kind of got away from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I started listening to your podcast in 2017, it got me interested in the Dexcom again. And I knew that I needed a stronger control on my blood sugars, that I was only capturing that one window that I tested my sugars in. And so when I got the Dexcom, after I had listened to some of your episodes, I wasn't as intimidated. I was like, okay, I know enough about myself. I've gotten myself through diabetes this far in life. Let's figure this out. So
good for you. Yeah, that idea of like, I'm still alive. Now let me try to be alive better. If I
let's feel better every day.
and that really is not to be overlooked, right? Is that you did not feel well most of your life in those years. Is that pretty accurate?
Right. Yeah. I just felt like there was, not a whole lot of energy going on. And I kind of wonder if my whole college experience would be different if I had had better blood sugars in that time.
I'm sure it would have been. Yeah. I'm sorry for you. That's definitely can feel like something that's lost that you can't get back, but I don't think that's true. I just think that, there's plenty of good things I've done in my life I don't remember either. So don't worry about what happened in the past. Like, just, move forward and keep doing what you're doing, I think. Okay. So basically that was a beautiful email that you sent me. I responded back, like I said, with bullet points. And even though I wonder, and so let me ask you just very quickly, not to get too far away from your story, but when you send such a beautiful and thoughtful and well-written letter and you get back 53 words, on your end, do you think, oh, that guy must be busy? Or do you think, geez, you could have given a little more to me here, buddy?
Well, I definitely know that you get a ton of emails. So I was just excited to get any response. And the fact that you did take the time to, talked to different parts of the letter. I was like, oh, that's really sweet. And, he's doing a whole lot.
I really do read them all. I hope everybody understands. It becomes overwhelming at some point, but I really do read every one of them. And so thank you. I was hoping that you didn't feel like you got, shortchanged because
No,
really
not at all.
Great. So you did what we talked about and you wrote back again. And now it's like, the end of June, early July in 2018. And you're like, hey, Scott, I want to send you an update on my last 6 months. I was like, excellent. Kayla's back. Kayla, who has a perfect name to be in country music, is writing me again. Positive stuff first, she says. See, finally now everyone's starting to understand, like, hey, I'll throw the good stuff out and then ready the guy for the bad stuff. My A1C has continued to improve. 6.4 in March of 2018, and now this month, 6.1. I mean, that's stunning. You started at a 9.
Yeah.
These are numbers I never thought were possible. My thyroid medication is also decreasing. All this is amazing. I'm still having issues with Dawn phenomenon. Nurse practitioner said we might look into adding metformin. I wondered if you talked to any type 1s that have tried metformin. And then you said, not now the not so shiny points. And I was like, it's funny because even the positive stuff, you were like, I might have to take metformin. That was positive too. You said the diabetic drain is real. We should all receive free counseling for the mental and physical strain we have to endure. Today I went to my endo and got those even better results, but sometimes a break would be nice. A break from the planning ahead, the constant financial stress, the lack of sleep, etc. I've been in a slump of low energy, tiredness, anxiety, wanting food comforts, then feeling guilty for them. I'm always a person to say, snap out of it. I'm just having a little bit of a hard time this time around. So you said, I just thought I'd share the physical and mental stuff, blah, 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 and continue, blah, blah, thank you, relentless Kayla. Right. And so, okay, now let's see. That was June 28th. I promptly responded back to Kayla 5 weeks later. Oh my God, this was such a bad idea. Now I feel bad about this. And I said, this A1C news is amazing. Congratulations. And then I said, are you having any luck coming out of the burnout? Which is basically because 5 weeks had passed and I didn't know if you had thrown yourself out a window yet or not. And so, right. And then we don't talk again really in September, October, November, December. And so, okay. So let's talk about that point right there, that spot in time. Diabetes burnout. That's what people call it, right?
Yeah.
But it's anything burnout. Like, right? Everything's like that. Anything you have to do frequently, have to do daily, becomes monotonous. And when you're doing it and doing it the best you can and it's not going your way, it's even more difficult, right? Because you're like, wait, I'm killing myself for this and it's not even working out. But still, when it works out, it's still a lot of work. So I wondered if you couldn't talk about that a little bit, like what it's like to do something day after day after day.
Well, I'll tell you what's really helped me get through is sharing what I'm going through with others. And you talk about that all the time on here, is the importance of community and knowing that you have support, but it's people realizing what exactly you have to go through. And, it's not just me asking, what are we going to have for lunch? But it's me asking, what do I need to plan for? And so that's really helped me a lot in turning my mindset around, is having, my family and friends that are closest to me take the time to ask, how are you doing? How's everything going with your diabetes? How's your health? And then when I do explain to them, they kind of get it instead of kind of just going, oh, okay, but not really understanding what all diabetes is, which I know it's a complicated topic, but.
Do you think I should record an episode where I just speak to you like you're there, but you're not there, and then I leave long pauses of silence where you can answer out loud while you're driving in your car? Like if the podcast just started and I was like, hey, how are you? It's so good to see you. Then I don't talk for like 30 seconds while you're like, I'm good, Scott. How have you been? And I go, I'm great. And then there's a long pause, because I could do that. For people who are, not around others that understand their diabetes or don't have a place to talk to other people. I have to tell you, one of the things about this show that initially surprised me was feedback like that. Like the idea that I don't know another person with type 1. There are no conversations about diabetes in my life. and listening to other people talk about it is really helpful to me. I did not, I mean, I guess I expected a little bit, but not to the level that you and other people have described. So how did you engage those people? Did you actually go to somebody like your mom and say, look, I need to talk about this sometimes, or I need you to be interested in it? Or did you just start doing it? How did you get that rolling?
Well, Dexcom helps a lot because I tend to wear them on my arms. And so people ask that question, what is that? And then you can go into, well, I have type 1 diabetes. And, they may say, well, I have a friend that has type 1 or type 2 or whatever. But then you can kind of roll from there and say, this tests my blood sugar every 5 minutes. It helps me kind of see what's going on throughout the day and how to plan for what's coming next. And so it is really more of a preventative care than I'd had before,
So your gear's acting as an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting because there are as many people, I've heard from as many people who think, I hate when somebody sees my pump or my CGM and they start talking to me about it. What is this? And now you're giving me the exact opposite. Like, so that even that is just perspective and the way you react, because you could take an opportunity when somebody's like, hey, what's that? To say, this is what it is. And then maybe you'd find this sort of connection that Kayla found as well. Just an ability to meet a person and talk about diabetes for a second. Like it's a normal thing, because it really is a normal thing, but not to everyone. And so you're left on your end feeling like, well, geez, it's not normal to them, so I won't bring it up, or this makes me different. But they have stuff that is normal to them that you don't have, but they don't think of it as making them different. Isn't it weird? Like, if I was I don't know, like if I liked photography and you didn't, I wouldn't think, oh gosh, I should hide my photography because it makes me different. It's just, you should celebrate your differences, right? Like that's got to be a t-shirt that already exists. And so there's a good reason for it, because it's important to do. It is important to look at yourself and say, this is me. There's nothing wrong with any of this. And no reason not to tell somebody about it. That is really right. That's really excellent. Is your family more involved than they were in the past?
Yes, they are. And I think a lot of it was, I had 6 months kind of under their roof, and then I was gone to college. And so they didn't really see that struggle and me trying to learn how to function and with this disease. And so I think it took me getting the Dexcom and sharing my better A1Cs with them, and then they would ask questions. And then last year, my mom and sister went to the JDRF conference with me, and it just ramped them up. They were so excited.
Excellent. No, it's so cool, because then they see all those other people who are, living your life, and it's, I don't know what that does, but it certainly does something, because I've felt it as well. I've been to big conferences, and there is an energy that's, unmistakable. It's very cool that they did that with you. Okay. So 6 months after my, that's an amazing, good job note. Sorry. You're right back again. And now it's January of 2019. Hello, Scott. I hope you're doing well. It took some tough talks with my doctor, but I have finally had some luck figuring out what self-care I need to stay positively motivated in the midst of my daily health. I have started Weight Watchers to help with my accountability in what I'm eating and to encourage me to keep moving. That's excellent. And that's also just another look at planning, right? Like I was thinking that when you were saying it earlier, like you have to plan for your insulin, plan for when you're going to put on your pump, that sort of thing. And eating is the same thing. Like people say it all the time. Like if I know what I'm going to have, I'm okay. It's when I roll into the kitchen hungry that I get into trouble. So a little planning ahead. You switched up. Let's see, what'd you do? In the mornings, I switched it up with either yoga or Tai Chi along with walks throughout the day. Due to my dawn phenomenon, I found that less intense workouts are best for me, so I'm not battling an even more intense spike in the morning. So you were getting up in the morning, seeing higher blood sugars, then doing a tough workout, which was probably spiking up your adrenaline and other things. Your blood sugar was going up.
Right.
Which I'm assuming felt like a mixed message to you because you were doing something healthy and having an unhealthy response.
Yes. And it would help my blood sugars the rest of the part of the day, but that morning was such a struggle.
Cool. So you just stepped back, it sounds like to me, thought about it, and said, okay, obviously the exercise is helping me throughout the day, but what could I do right now to stop this one spike? Geez. Kayla, you have in the span of about a year and a half gone from like, hey, everything sucks, to like figuring out all these things. It's just an amazing turnaround for you. Like that, you must be jacked up. Like you have to be walking around some days like, Kayla is killing it. And I don't know if you talk to yourself in the mirror or not, but if you do, that's what I would say. Okay, so hold on. I found less intense workouts. Oh, new A1C goal. You've reached a new A1C back in January 2019, 5.7.
Yeah.
You said it was unreal to you. I think it's unreal to me too. It's stunning. Like, I mean, you started at a 9, and you were like just looking at the button on your Omnipod, going, nah, I'll just eat. And now look at you. You went from nah, I'll just eat to yoga, Tai Chi, and a 5.7. You're like a success story, unlike anything else, except that it's not unlike anything else because this is I hope everyone's listening, one of many, 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 many emails that follow this path that I have. So the point is, it's really possible for anybody. It genuinely is. Well, congratulations, first of all. That's amazing. What did it feel like? Like, what's it feel like to wake up 18 months later and feel like you're having a completely different life?
It's still surreal that, I'm able to get this control because for so long I just felt like, oh, some people are able to do that, but not me. But the more I see, the better blood sugars and the better I feel and the more energy I have, and it just makes me want to do more. So actually a week ago I got the N pen. So no longer am I on the just MDI flex pens. I'm now on the N pen, and that's been even more of a change and more helpful. So
that's amazing because yesterday Companion Medical, who makes the N pen, contacted me about maybe becoming an advertiser on the podcast. That's crazy. I hadn't really heard from them much at all since they were on like a long time ago. But did you hear about them on the podcast?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're finding a tone to our conversation here. This is very cool. Oh, so now you're using a pen now that's talking to your Dexcom data. Explain a little bit to me how it works.
So it doesn't do on the actual InPen app itself. It only shows you your blood sugar from 3 hours ago. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you can look at your InPen app and see your current blood sugars. But whenever you go and enter in if you're about to eat or if you need to do a correction or anything, then that's when you can go in, do the calculator, and it compares your current blood sugar to what you're about to eat, to the carbs you're about to intake. So,
wow. That's pretty out.
And it has been really awesome so far.
No, it's when it's funny. I had them on originally because the gentleman, one of the creators of the InPen, was a person who started. I started knowing them through Dexcom. They worked at Dexcom, mm-hmm. And so I felt comfortable when they wanted to come on because I thought, okay, it's a person who knows what they're talking about. I like their goal for the product. I think it's worth talking to them about it, even though we don't use it. So, because it's a little weird for me if I haven't used it to talk about it. It's hard for me sometimes. But with that connection and I knew where he was coming from, it made sense to me. It's just so cool to know that it's working for you. And I'm sure others too, but that's just, that is really cool. Good for you. Look at this. This podcast has really been good for you. And
I know it
tell
has.
people
it's
how
been
much,
awesome.
Kayla, tell how much you pay for the podcast. Tell everybody.
Nothing.
It's free. That's right. It's absolutely 100% free. Okay. So I went to the JDRF conference last week, told as many people as I could about the podcast. Thank you. It's helping so many people tackle confidence, difficult disease. My friend's mom has actually just decided to get a Dexcom. She was diagnosed with type 1 later in life. She's got a severe fear of lows. Told her to listen to the podcast and start target range. Oh yeah, I like that. It's excellent. I mean, there's really no better advice with the Dexcom than where to set your range at. Mm-hmm. Like how much it helps you with. You go on a little bit about other stuff. Very cool. Now, this is about the time I say to you, Kayla, I love getting your emails. And by the way, I emailed you back the same day that time, which just means that somehow Kayla emailed me on the day that I was answering emails. Just really congratulatory about your path and stuff like that, because, honestly, it's phenomenal. I went back and I read through those emails and I was like, this is absolutely astonishing. And it's why I wanted to talk about this way on the podcast today. At some point in there, over the next couple of days, I forced you to come on the show. I said, would you want to come on the podcast? And you said yes, which is terrific. So now we're sort of through our emails and to present day. So I'm going to put my email away because I hate reading while I'm doing this, because I'm bad at it, first of all. And I just need to ask you, if you were going to, it's so simple to say, go find yourself 2 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. But if you found somebody today who was in your situation, what do you think you would tell them? Like, take the podcast out of it, take everything else out of it. If I put you in charge of helping that other person, you become me and somebody else becomes you. What do you say to them?
First of all, I would tell them to make sure that everyone around you knows what you're going through, and they can help you in the good times and the bad times. That support is going to be everything. So I think that would be the top thing, whether it's, joining JDRF, doing, the different breakout groups with that, or there's an awesome one here in town, Party Like a Diabetic, and she helps out, people that are kind of the middle-age T1Ds and how they can manage the carbs and, still go out and have some fun every now and again, but still manage their blood sugars and be smart with their diabetes. So the support groups are everything.
And the idea that it's not all or nothing, right? That you don't have to be perfect or just give everything away and forget it. Right. There's absolutely a balance, and you might not always, listen, your A1C is stunning right now, right? Do you know what it is right now? Because you've probably had it done again since you wrote me last.
6.1 was the last one.
See, that's great to hear that you were 5'7", you're 6'1". Did you feel any difference between 5'7" and 6'1"?
Not really. Yeah. No.
You shouldn't, because it's the same thing. And so, you know what I mean? Like, it's a really great A1C. And that's another thing I see people do that I feel badly about. If you have a whatever 0.7 this time, and next time it's a 0.4, you're like, oh, great, I'm, did better. But if it goes to the 0.8 next time, honestly, 6.8, 6.4, 6.7, is there really that much of a difference? To me, what that says is what I'm doing is working. But there's probably something in there. If I really want to tighten it down, there's probably something in there I'm missing because I'm moving around a little bit. Because I can tell you that Arden's A1C just basically doesn't move anymore. I tell people it's been between 5.2 and 6.2 for the past 5 years, and it has. But even the 5.2, I don't know, like, what happened there. You know what I mean? Like, that was amazing. But she's just generally right at 5.5, 5.6. Like, it sits. And the reasoning for that is the tools. I'm using the same tools every day. And so it stands to reason that the outcomes would be the same. You know what I mean? Don't change the tools. The outcomes don't change too much. That's the place you're looking for. Like, this spot where you just do what you do and you're okay. And you don't even have to worry about your A1C. I don't even think, if it wasn't for this podcast, I don't even know if I would even ask anymore, because I'm that confident it's going to be right where it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, if you do the things you're supposed to do, it works. And there's a great relief in that, because then you don't always think like, oh gosh, am I doing the right thing? You just know, this repetitive action. And in my mind, that's planning. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So, okay. So support, right? 100% for you. That was the most important thing. Some sort of support, somebody and what does that mean in real life? It doesn't always mean, I'm imagining, like, that you can go to your mom and be like, hey, everything's terrible. Is it just enough sometimes to be around a person who understands?
Yes, for sure. My boyfriend, RC, we've been together 6 years, and he's the one that I have my Dexcom tethered to. And he's just really quick to say, "Hey, are you snacking? Hey, how are you feeling today?" Anytime that he sees my blood sugar is being a little crazy. Or when we get home, he's like, "What happened this morning?" Just things that he knows that there are other factors that go into it. And he doesn't do the freak out method, but he's just really supportive about it. And my sister has been more in tune, and she just became a physical trainer. So she's been learning all the nutrition side of things, and she'll call me with random tips about, have you tried this? What you should do this and see what your blood sugar does. And, so she's been really fascinated to learn more as well. So
that's excellent. I
yeah.
think that it's important that to say to people that when that support, you're looking, like, really listen to what she's saying. Like, it's not like they came along and they were like, "Hey, you should change your basal insulin." Like, it's not that specific. It's just like, how are things? I saw blah, blah, blah. And you don't get defensive about it. You're just like, "No, I wasn't," or do you? Do you ever hear back from them and think, "All right, not today, shut up"?
So before I tethered my Dexcom to RC's phone and his technology, I had to have the talk with him. Like, look, you're going to see some crazy blood sugars every now and again. And I kind of said, you can't freak out every time. You have to trust me that I know what I'm doing. I mean, I'd like for you to still check in and say, "Hey, how's it going?" But don't immediately call 911 if I'm, have a high for a little bit of time. Give me a little bit of faith that I can get it down,
Yeah.
So.
That's excellent. So you set some parameters and some expectations.
Yeah, for sure.
And he followed them.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good guy.
So now every time I get a good A1C, my parents are like, "Good job," and "RC, good job too."
Listen, I don't like RC getting credit. I would prefer if they called me. But I mean, it's fine. No, that's amazing. It really is a spectacular story. Just, find one person. Now, what do I do? What do I do if I can't find a person? What do I do if my life does not include people who I'm close to or that understand not to freak out and that kind of thing? Is online another way to go?
Yeah. Or, I mean, this podcast is a huge connection to, hey, I'm not the only one dealing with this struggle, and here's how other people are overcoming it. And it's been a big outlet for me as well.
And you understand, I hope, that I ask because I don't have diabetes. So I don't know what you're talking about right now. Like, You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand the thing that you're explaining. I mean, I understand it because you're explaining it really well, but I can't internalize it. Like, I can talk more about the management stuff because I understand it better. Mm-hmm. The rest of this podcast is just me wondering out loud, trying to figure out what to tell my daughter one day. So, I mean, seriously, you guys are helping me way more than I'm helping you. But, I mean, you're not charging me either. So we're just here for free, doing a thing together. But it really is different for me. Like, I don't know the conversation you and I are having right now, besides the fact that it's going to be incredibly helpful for the people who are listening, it's going to help me, but not today. It'll help me when my daughter goes to college, or, when she's an adult and she needs somebody to talk to, but how much do I talk to her? Like, these conversations are going to be what rings in my head when I'm trying to help her. So I fooled you guys. This is all for me. And it's just lucky that it's working out for you too. Okay. So RC, not named after the soda, I imagine.
And no, but we tell people that. We're like, RC, like the cola.
I would absolutely tell people that he's part of the RC Cola family, and that he's a soda magnet, maybe, that sort of thing. All right.
Well, of course, then they call me Moon Pie. So
wait a minute. What? Say it again.
If you go to any small town here in Tennessee, or just I think in the South, you'll see there's these little country stores, and they have RC Cola and Moon Pie stuff everywhere. So Moon Pie is kind of. Have you ever had a Moon Pie?
I know.
Or heard of one?
I know what it is. I've not had one.
Okay. So yeah, they apparently go good together. Haven't tried it myself, but.
But so you and RC go well together. So you are Moon Pie.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm a down. Okay. You guys should steal one of the signs out of one of those stores one time. Stealing things isn't good. Never mind. I should have said that. Are you using the podcast mostly as community at this point? Or are we still saying things at times that you're like, ooh, good idea, I'll try that?
Yeah, both. I really enjoyed it. I think the shade episode you put up recently, I loved I loved your sassiness.
Under the shade bus with Maddie.
Yes, it was awesome, and I loved the sassiness against Medtronic, and
Hey, they should be nicer to people and care more, and stop trying to take everybody's money and give them back stuff that only works. You know what I mean?
I was like, "Oh, get it, Scott."
How much harder would you have to try just to do a good job? Think of it that way, right?
It's very true. Very true.
Yeah, Maddie was terrific. I really enjoyed her a lot, and you guys are.
She was awesome.
And you're not similar in age, really. I mean, you're almost a decade out of college, right? And she's in college right now. So
yeah, but I still see myself as a lot younger.
Do you now? So I want to ask you. We've about 10 minutes left, so I want to ask you a couple other questions. So you alluded a couple of times in your notes that your weight was a struggle for you.
Yes.
And has the improvements you've made with your blood sugars led to any difference or change there that you can see?
Not really, but I think the confidence that I can do different activities now, now that my blood sugars are under control and I can, do harder workouts, and I have a lot more confidence in what my body is able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's helped me feel stronger. So I think my main focus is just to be healthier and not to focus so much on that number, it's hard, but
yeah. Can I ask you, back when you were diagnosed, would you have considered your weight not where you wanted it then?
Well, not when I was diagnosed, because I had lost 40 pounds, but
prior to that, I guess I mean.
Yeah, my weight has always been an issue. And I've always felt a little heavier than everybody, but I figure as long as you're focusing on your health and doing the best you can, then that's still a good thing for sure.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if any of the sort of, I don't want to say lessons, but the things that you've learned over the last year or so with your type 1, does any of it translate to that? Or have you not considered it that way yet? Because it's interesting, like, I said before that the planning aspect of dieting is very similar to the planning aspect of keeping your blood sugar where you want it. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if, like, now that you have found, like, sort of this rhythm with your diabetes, if there was a way to translate some of those ideas to, your other goals, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's made me more confident to try different things. And because I have found that rhythm with my diabetes, it's not as big a struggle to add on other things, like trying a different diet or trying, a different routine, is not as complicated or overwhelming, because I know that I can do my diabetes well now.
See, that's really interesting, isn't it, too? That when you're having multiple struggles on multiple fronts, it really just feels hopeless. Mm-hmm. Right? And so now you found hope in one spot, and it makes you feel like, okay, that doesn't need as much focus. I can shift some of the energy I have left and some of the focus I have left to this other place. Right. And it's huge, because you're an adult. You're going to work. You know what I mean? Like, you get up and, like, think about your life. You go to work. You have diabetes. You'd like to, exercise and do things like that. RC is taking up your time. I can hear it. And, and you've got a relationship with your sister, relationship with your parents. You've all these different things, and there are only 24 hours in a day, and you're asleep for 8 of them. So, you know what I mean? I have 16 hours to accomplish all those things. 8 of them I'm working. Now I'm down to 8 left. I'm tired. I have to make myself dinner. And they're like, where is the time to tackle a new thing? Because you can't ignore the diabetes completely, right? You're always with that.
Right.
It's important to get the diabetes thing, that piece, in check, so that it creates more space for you in other places.
Yeah, it's so much less of a burden when you actually feel like you know what you're handling.
Yeah. And it is completely understandable when you don't have those tools, when you take yourself back 10 years ago, it's completely understandable that you wouldn't have anything left for anything else. That just the struggling with diabetes and then feeling bad about it, and then, like you said too, being tired, worn down, I'm sure you were probably foggy and didn't realize it. You said, I wonder what it would have been like to go to college, with blood sugars that were more stable. There's nothing left. And then every 3 months you go to a doctor and you're like, you have to help me. And they're like, yeah, do better. Wow. Thank you. Appreciate it. I didn't think of that. Well, thank God you're here. Oh my gosh. What a horrible merry-go-round you easily could get caught on.
Yeah, for sure.
That's terrible. It really is. I'm very
I
happy.
will say that I have a much better endocrinologist now, and I got them midway through college, and it's at Vanderbilt. So they're, one of the top diabetes places around here, and they're very encouraging. Anything new that I throw at them, they say, yeah, let's try it. And, so that's made a huge difference.
That's excellent. And so what you're saying is you at some point said to them, hey, I found a podcast. I'm going to try some other stuff now. And they were supportive of it.
Yeah.
What was I'm trying to think of the question here. What kind of a reaction did you get in the office when you had such a drastic decrease in A1C? Like, did they just act like, I'm interested now. Like, what happens to a person with a 9 who comes in suddenly with a 7? Do you remember that?
Well,
that visit?
The nurse practitioner, she immediately was like, "Are you having a lot of lows? What's going on? How are you feeling?" And I was like, "Well, let me give you my Dexcom data through the Clarity app, and you can see how I've been doing." And she was like, "How?" Just seeing how much more of a control that I did have, and it wasn't just roller coaster.
And so that was it. Like that it's the first thought, because how could someone go from a 9 to a 7 in 3 months? They must have had a bunch of lows, and now this number's just not accurate. And their variability was off. Now, once they look at the data and the data proves to them, hey, you really have like a legit 7. What's that moment? Do you remember that moment? Because I would think I'd be incredulous if I was a doctor. I'd just be like, what do I say? Like, do I start thinking, did I say something in the last appointment that made a 2-point change in our A1C? Like, where did the conversation go? Do you recall?
Well, I told them that really the big difference was having the Dexcom and knowing what's going to happen and being able to prevent if anything is going to go crazy up or down. I think that was really just the big point where they said, okay, well, I guess we need to. I think they didn't know as much about the Dexcom as they wanted to. And so it kind of gave them an opportunity to learn as well. I did mention, I listened to this Juicebox podcast, and he really teaches us to be bold with our insulin. And so I kind of took that and ran with it. And you could tell they were a little hesitant, just because I had been running higher and now I'm running, where I'm supposed to. They're just, again, it's that fear of, let's make sure she's doing this in a healthy way.
And so now you roll in later with your fancy 5s, A1Cs, 5-4s, whatever. Do you just float through the office now? Like, are you like the star person? Do you just like, hello, everyone, it's me. I'm here again so you can test my blood sugar. I will show you my 5, whatever, A1C. You'll send me your prescriptions and we'll leave. Like, is it more like a parade of Kayla going through the halls? Like, hello, everybody. Like, have you become famous there? What happens? Like, what happens when you make that next leap? Like, are they just like, okay, well, you don't need us anymore? Or what's the vibe?
They just were really encouraging, saying, this is incredible. You're doing an amazing job. And actually, my endocrinologist said, if you don't want to come back for 6 months, we can do that. So that really felt good that he trusts me more with my care.
That's cool.
And so I went back the next 3 months, and it was 6.2 or 6.1. And then after that, I made the call to go back every 6 months just because
it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's the first time I didn't even know that was an option.
How much is your copay? Do you know?
50.
50. So
yeah.
We've cut out 2 visits a year at $50 a piece. Not only is this podcast free, it has made you $100.
Yeah.
That's going to be the new thing I tell people. The podcast can make you money, right? It's a pyramid scheme with your copay somehow. I'll figure out the details later. No, seriously. I can't tell you really. I always shudder to say that I'm proud of somebody because we don't know each other, and it's reductive for me to tell you I'm proud of you because you don't need me to be proud of you, and it's not my place to be proud of you. But I'm incredibly proud of you, so I'm saying it anyway. I just really, oh my God, you're so welcome. It's everything that I try to tell people on the podcast. It just came true for you. You know what I mean? Like it's so doable with these little ideas, and they really aren't. I mean, honestly, today, the amount of effort or worry that goes into your diabetes today versus 2 years ago. Describe the difference between those two.
I worry about it a lot less, and I have more of a routine with it. And I don't know, it just makes every day a lot simpler. It's not like this cloud looming over. It's more of like okay, let's do it. Let's tackle it.
Cool. And what do you do on the days when it seems like too much? How do you, where do you go back to like to start over again?
So there are still those days, and I have to, take time for myself. So RC leaves for work really early, so I use that time in the morning to work out and do my yoga and kind of have that time to reset for the day and, make sure I'm going to make good food choices during the day. And it's just kind of my mindset moment.
Nice. That's excellent. Yeah. Yoga, did you teach it to yourself? Did you go to a class? How did you figure it out?
No. So when I worked at a music venue back in the day, I did events for them. They had free yoga classes every Saturday. And so I did a few of those and found out that I really loved it. And I was a lot more flexible than I thought I was. And so when I kind of got out on my own, I found that there was Yoga with Adriene. It's like a free YouTube channel, and it is awesome. And I mean, she puts up videos every week, and so you can follow along with that. And so I've kind of been doing that, and I got her. She has her own app now, so you can follow videos on there too. So
that's so cool. And so I think what we're all learning right now, listening to you, is that you're proactive, right? Like I mean, somebody offered a free yoga class on a Saturday, and you're like, I'll try that. And, like that, sometimes that's all it takes is just a little like, oh, let me see, like let me throw myself into that and see what happens. And if the yoga doesn't end up being it, then it's something else. And you keep moving. I mean, honestly, it really is like the overarching theme of your story is that you just tried things. Like you tried that Dexcom all the way back then, and you said you were out of control then and it was overwhelming, but you tried it. You know what I mean? You easily could have just ignored it and thought, no, I won't. You tried, giving your boyfriend access to your data. And if it didn't work out, you could have just taken it back again, but at least you tried.
Right.
It's excellent. I'm so excited for you. I really am. We're at the end here, and it feels like I should just tell you how excited I am for you, but I think that would be unnecessary. So I just want to ask you if there's anything that we didn't talk about that you were hoping to.
Well, I guess I was with Arden. Is she a junior or still a sophomore? What year is she going to be?
Oh, so she's a rising sophomore. So when she goes back, to school in a month or so, she'll be in her second year of high school.
Okay. Are you preparing her for what college is? How you handle it with college, and have you thought about that yet? I
think. Oh, thank you. Look at you, Kayla, bringing something to the table here for the podcast. Okay, hold on a second, Kayla. We're not done yet. I appreciate this. I think about this a lot, and I find that it's situational, and that there are these little incremental movements, like how I thought about getting Arden from elementary school to middle school to high school, and all these little steps. Right. Mm-hmm. Right now is a super interesting time because by the time Arden is in college or leaving for college, there will be multiple options for closed loop systems, right?
Oh.
Multiple options. And how much is that going to change things? Is what she needs to know going to be wildly different then than it is now? And I think the truth is, I think yes. And I also believe that closed loop systems are not as perfect as we're all hoping. You know what I mean? Like they're not just going to, it's not going to be this magical thing that you slap on and your blood sugar just goes to 85 and stays there forever. It's not that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so I think that understanding how to manipulate the algorithm to do what you want it to do and to know when to leave it alone so that it can do what it wants to do, I think that's going to be the way of thinking about diabetes for people who are using those systems. So much like the podcast is full of these like little like tools or, you know, that lead to your A1C and Arden's A1C now, and everyone else listening, I believe there are going to be tools to that space too. And I am currently trying very hard to figure out that so that I can talk about it with you guys and so that I can pass it on to Arden. The things that Arden's really going to need help with are the responsibility factors,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because right now we're doing this thing together. And so what do you do when someone's not with you all the time? You know, like one thing we've really accomplished for Arden, I think, is that she doesn't really, like you talked about diabetes being like a smaller part of your day. It is such an incredibly small part of Arden's life that it's possible, not that it's too small, but that she just doesn't really understand the full impact of it some days.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Because there's times that people step in and say something to her, or we get together and think, oh, you know, look what happened here. I think that's the part. Like that's going to be the most difficult part, is the transition from I'm doing it with somebody to I'm doing it more on my own. And I also wonder if it's really necessary, if it won't just find its way naturally, because it's not like what she and I are doing right now can't continue to some degree or whatever degree she's comfortable with in college.
Yeah.
You know, like I would, this is not a brag, but I am at the point now where if you just gave me your data, I could probably manage your diabetes, and I don't know you. It would take me a couple of hours to figure it out and we'd be okay. And so I've done it remotely with other people. There are people listening right now who are like, oh, Scott followed my kids' blood sugars for weeks. It's not something that I talk about a lot because I don't have the bandwidth to do it for everybody who I imagine would want to do it. But there have been some people who have had very significant cases, and I've been like, okay, let me take a look, and I help them bump things around a little bit. But I can bolus remotely. Like I have this thing, I don't know, at this point I can kind of close my eyes and imagine what's going on. Like I sort of know what to do. And so I could keep doing that with her. I don't imagine she would want that. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to put myself in the space of a 19-year-old Arden off at school. Like I don't know that she would want that. And maybe she would, or maybe she'd want some version of it. So I don't know. I think we adjust as we go. That's what we've been doing this whole time. Just making these small adjustments to how we handle things. And we course correct a lot. So I don't think it's going to be any different than that, but you might know better than me. You know, what would you want if you had the opportunity for me to help you in college? Would you want that or would you not?
To an extent, but I also want to know that I can handle it. And that, I mean, when I was in college, I didn't really share with anyone that I had type 1. And I would hide my Omnipod. And so it was a kind of a different mindset for me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at an extent, I do wish I had some help. But I also wanted to know that I could handle it. And that, you know, what if I decide to take a weekend trip with some girlfriends? Then I can know that I can handle myself and, you know.
Yeah, it's so I have the perspective of a lot of different people because of this podcast. Again, it helps me way more than it helps you guys. I hope everybody knows that. But, you know, there's I don't know. I don't want to give people's details away, but there's a junior in college somewhere in this country who I speak with on the regular, and they're having trouble right now with their basal rates, and they're waiting to talk about them with a parent. But this person's now going through a lot of lows, and a part of me wants to say to them, like, you know what to do. Like, you should just do it. You know, like, you don't need to go talk to your mom or dad first.
Mm-hmm.
But I know they know, and I know they'll get to that point at some point, but that they're on their path. You know what I mean? Like their process is taking the time that it's taking.
Right.
And so I get to see that person's experience. And I get to talk to a person who's 35 who has the luxury of looking back and saying, I wish my parents were more involved. One of the things that sticks with me from one of the shows is that someone said, I constantly was pushing my parents away, but I wish they would have stayed more involved. Like, so that's like a parenting thing to me, right? Like what happens when a kid tells you, I don't need you, but you know they do.
Right.
Like,
and I was that to an extent as well.
You know, so I see that part of it from those stories. And, you know, you see the stories of the people who are, as having small problems with their eyes or retinopathy or trigger finger, and all the way up to people who've needed kidneys. And when I listen to their stories over and over again, if they started with diabetes at a younger age, they all have similar backgrounds of parents who were like, you'll be fine. Like, you know what you're doing. And they didn't. They all know that, like, in the back of their mind, they didn't know what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But to tell their parents, no, I don't know what I'm doing, felt like a letdown to the parents, so they sort of didn't say anything. So there's a balance between positivity and reality, right? Like it's nice to say, you go get them, killer. You can do it. But if they can't really do it, then that's not a great message, right? So then the message needs to shift to, I believe in you. I can help you. So I'll support you here. And I think you can put it into practice. And to be honest, I don't know who of all those people Arden's going to be. So I just have to sort of stay fluid and wait for it to show itself and then keep adjusting. I don't really see parenting much differently than I see blood sugars, honestly. If that makes any sense. I don't know. Now, if I drop dead, she's screwed. I'm just kidding. No, but I think, I honestly, there are times that I think, like, what if I just, like, what if I did die? Like, what would she do? And it's funny, the best thing that I can find myself hoping for is that she goes back to episode 1 of this podcast and listens through it.
Yeah.
Because it works for other people. I think it would work for her too. So that's my backup plan. My backup plan is that if I don't find a way to be a decent parent through the transition, that maybe everyone else's stories will help her. I don't know. I feel like I've got my bases covered here, but maybe I don't.
No, I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you and have you so in tune with her, everyday struggle, and whether it's good or bad, you're very in tune, and that's really awesome to have.
She's my moon pie. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, she's your moon pie.
All right. What do you think about naming this episode Shamu Can't Cook?
That works.
It's all I've thought in the back of my head for the last 45 minutes. Can I get away with calling this episode Shamu Can't Cook? Or am I the only person who thinks that's funny? I can't tell. I don't know. What's something about Tennessee that I like? Tennessee. What do we call this one? Can I call it the Great Smoky Mountains? Like what's the thing?
I don't know.
You don't have any idea. See, listen.
Music City.
For all you people who give me trouble about what the podcast episode, it's not easy to come up with a title of a podcast episode. See, just right, Kayla was like, I asked her something about the place where she grew up, and she's like, see? All right, I win. I get to call it whatever I want. It's Shamu Can't Cook. That's enough.
Well, Tennessee's such a long state. It's almost like it's 3 different regions, 3 different states in one. So, like, you have the Great Smoky Mountains to the east, and then the middle is kind of known for Nashville and Music City, and then the west is Memphis, and
it's a long, flat state.
Yeah. A lot going on.
And that's not a good episode title. Long, flat state. That's not going to work. All right, Kayla, I'm going to say goodbye.
Okay.
And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
I want to thank Kayla for coming on the show and sharing her story with all of us. And while I'm at it, I want to thank the Contour Next One blood glucose meter and Touched by Type 1. It's possible you'll be eligible for a free meter. Go to contournext1.com to find out. And of course, support or witness what Touched by Type 1 is doing at touchedbytype1.org. The tools that Kayla spoke about in the show are part of the Juicebox podcast. There's a series, actually, called Diabetes Pro Tip. It begins at episode 210, and they run not concurrently throughout the show, so some people have trouble finding them. Because of that, I launched a website, diabetesprotip.com. No S at the end. diabetesprotip.com. If you're interested in seeing them all collected in one place, go there and check them out. But then, of course, you can listen right through your podcast player. You don't have to listen online, but you can. And if you're somebody who's been helped by those tips in the past, feel free, as a matter of fact, feel more than free, to share diabetesprotip.com with a friend.